How's it hanging, boys and girls of 8th grade? It's your boy, Fancy Taco 370, and today we're talking about a fancy state named Wyoming. Wyoming was discovered in a period called the Wild West. The Wild West was seen as both a time of peace and rebuilding and a time of war and fighting. Before we can even talk about this Wild West period, we have to talk about the beginning.
One eternity later.
In November 1867, the first train of the Union Pacific Railroad reached Cheyenne and made the state of Wyoming available to settlers and visitors. As being one of the 50 states, it held many Native Americans before us, such as the Crow, Shoshone, Cheyenne, Ute, hopefully that's how you say it. If you don't, I hope you'll forgive me. After all, I am the best YouTuber ever. Never, And last but not least, your boy, Arapio. You may think that's long enough to go back, but on this channel, we never go far enough back. Because, we've been before since anyone else has been before. It's actually thousands of years before the Native American tribes came here. The first settlers of Wyoming were probably prehistoric hunters and gatherers who probably arrived from Siberia through Alaska. This was more than 20,000 years ago. You know what? That's a while. I've been only alive for about 2 years now. Alright, so since it was 20,000, the total number of these peoples was never big because they depended mostly on local game population, which at that time kept going down because more people would arrive. Well-documented visits of white people occurred. The number of people already there did not exceed more than 10,000.
Where did everybody go?
Now back to the so-called Wild West period. Because railroads were new and thriving, it was a way of getting trade and transport. Every place wanted it, including the West.
I like trains.
This whole movement actually created the Wyoming. As the Union Pacific tracks continued across the state, entering Utah in 1868, the construction of the railroad focused attention on the West and the Wyoming Territory, which was created on July 25th, 1868. Another amazing thing about Wyoming, it was not admitted into the Union until 1890. Its constitution was the first in the world to grant complete voting rights to its women, as well as to allow them to hold office. Wyoming also became the first state to elect a woman governor when Nellie Taylor won the position in 1924. In fact, Wyoming has been called the Equality State. Wyoming set itself an economy. In the years after statehood, Wyoming developed its thriving cattle industry, serving as an end or terminus for cattle drives from Texas. Its huge rangelands helped develop the cowboy era, which was an era marked by violence and war. As part of being a great information/knowledge YouTuber, you need to show some real current events or thing you can do in real life. This is a science experiment that you can do right now. Just grab some bread. You'll see what you turn on your sink. You get that bread nice and wet. Okay. And then you're just gonna, put that right about there. Okay. Alright, so just move this out of the way if you have that there. And now you're going to open up your mayo drawer, and you're just going to get a dab of mayo. I'm just going to put that on there. Just going to put that on there. Now, this is the east, this is the west. We just got some turkey, slap that on that's the west. No, that's the west, that's the east. And now, I'll be the railroad. So the whole problem is, everybody expect these things to come together as soon as the government created the railroad system. But the whole problem is, if you put these on, like that, and then you pick it up to eat it, or I mean, railroad ties that across it. You see, we got the mayo and the turkey. They don't mix because they haven't mixed in a while. See, that's the whole problem here. Alright, so now that you got your east and the west and they're together, the government created the railroad system to kind of like put them apart, you know? Just take a bite of it. And that's where the conflict starts, you see? Because you don't want this. You know, this is not acceptable. Now that unacceptableness that there's just a lot of conflict going on. Nothing really mixing together how everybody would want it to. Just everybody just wants it to cook up nice in the crock pot, but no one wants that, you know? Like no sides want that, because you've been against a side as soon as this war started, and now you just want it to come together. I don't think it works that way. The violence was between cattlemen and homesteaders. Conflicts over the control of resources and land.
What are you doing in my
land occurred throughout the American West. One of the biggest moments in Wyoming history didn't occur within its borders. On May 10th, 1869, a large crowd gathered at Promontory Summit, Utah Territory, to celebrate the finishing of the world's first transcontinental railroad. Wyoming got most of its thriving income from coal mines and railways. Geography in this place was rocky. After all, it does have Yellowstone State Park.
Wrong.
Yellowstone State Park is accompanied by lots of rivers. Wyoming is a huge area that is filled with native tribes. And Yellowstone Park, like I said, takes up a huge amount. And that place is covered with mountains.
Knowledge.